If you're planning your first Alaskan cruise, there's a few things you need to know before you sail. This isn't like a Caribbean vacation. The weather, excursions, even the daylight are completely different. So in this video, I'll walk you through when to sail, what to pack, and which experiences are actually worth the money. All the things I wish someone told me before my first Alaskan cruise. Let's start with the first big decision you'll make: when to cruise. Because the time of year you sail in Alaska completely changes what you'll see, what you'll pay, and even what the weather feels like on board. And there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Every month gives you a totally different experience. If you sail in May or September, that's called the shoulder season. Fares are lower, ships are less crowded, and the scenery is still amazing. But the weather's cooler and some of the attractions in port may not be fully open in May, or may already be winding down in September. The upside in September is the gorgeous fall colors. Those fall colors also come with a lot more rain. Now, if you cruise in the heart of summer, like July or August, that's when Alaska really shines. The weather's warmer, the days are longer, and it's prime time for wildlife. Whale sightings are common, and these months provide the best chance of spotting them right from your balcony. But the trade-off is higher prices and larger crowds, especially in popular ports like Juneau, Skagway, and Ketchikan. So the best time to cruise Alaska depends on which trade-offs you're willing to make. Do you want lower prices and fewer crowds, or warm weather and more wildlife? Pick the season based on the experience you want most, and consider your budget. Number 2, Alaska is not the Caribbean. And it's not just the weather. Sure, you're still on a cruise ship, but the vibe is completely different. In the Caribbean, the ship itself is often the destination. Think pool parties, belly flop contests, and DJs by the pool. But in Alaska, the focus is on what's outside the ship. Think glaciers, mountains, wildlife, and the incredible shore excursions. And because of that, the onboard atmosphere is a lot slower and more relaxed. Instead of late-night deck parties, you'll find more people bundled up on the observation deck, quietly watching the scenery go by. The demographic also tends to skew a little older, with fewer families and kids compared to warm weather cruises. That doesn't mean there's nothing happening on board. You'll still find shows, live music, and activities, but the overall pace is calmer. It's more about the scenery and experience than about the non-stop entertainment. So if you're expecting a Caribbean-style party cruise, Alaska might feel different. But if you lean into that slower, more relaxed atmosphere, it's an incredible experience you'll never forget. Number 3, the itineraries and the ship matters. Another thing I wish I'd known sooner is just how much your itinerary and ship changes the Alaska experience. Let's start with where you sail from. Most cruises go round trip from Seattle or Vancouver. Seattle's super convenient if you're flying from the US, but you'll spend more time in the open ocean, which can be a little rougher. If you're prone to seasickness, this might be an important consideration. Vancouver sailings usually give you more time on the inside passage, and it's more sheltered by Vancouver Island. So from day one, you're cruising through calmer waters and witnessing more incredible scenery. I find it's a little rougher than the Caribbean, but you spend less time in the open ocean when you sail from Vancouver. Then you've got one-way cruises that start or end in Anchorage, Seward, or Whittier. These are fantastic if you want to go deeper into Alaska and don't mind longer itineraries. You'll get to see more of the northern towns and some remote areas of the state. The trade-off is one-way flights, which cost more than round trip. But you also have the opportunity to tack on a land tour, including Denali National Park, which you won't get on a simple round trip. And then there's the ship itself. Smaller ships can reach more off-the-beaten-path ports like Sitka or Icy Strait Point, and they offer a calmer, more intimate onboard atmosphere. Larger ships bring tons of dining, entertainment, and activities to keep you busy, but they're limited to the larger ports. So here's my rule of thumb. Pick a bigger ship if you want that energetic, activity-packed onboard experience. But if you'd rather have a laid-back cruise that visits more remote destinations, go with a smaller vessel. Number 4 is choosing the right cabin. Once you've picked your ship, the next big decision is where you'll sleep. And in Alaska, it matters more than you might think. Let's start with the balconies. There's nothing like waking up, stepping outside, and seeing glaciers or snow-capped mountains right from your room. On scenic cruising days like Glacier Bay or Hubbard Glacier, a balcony gives you a private front row seat without having to fight for space on the pool deck. But here's the thing, interior cabins have a huge advantage. Alaska gets crazy long daylight hours in the summer. Sometimes the sun doesn't set until 11 p.m. or later. Inside cabins are pitch black, which makes them perfect for sleeping. Plus, they're a lot cheaper, and you can use those savings for shore excursions, specialty dining, or even another cruise. Personally, I almost always book an interior cabin because I don't spend much time in my room. But Alaska is one of the few times I splurge for a balcony. I find it special to wake up and sit outside with a coffee in hand and watch the scenery roll by from the privacy of my balcony cabin. And I've even gotten lucky enough to see whales from the ship. So here's my take. If the views from your room are a priority, a balcony is absolutely worth it. But if you'd rather save the money and get a dark, quiet place to crash after a long day of exploring, an interior cabin is a smart choice. Now let's talk about wildlife spotting. It's one of the absolute highlight of any Alaskan cruise. And wildlife really is everywhere. But here's the reality check. You're not guaranteed to see wildlife from the ship. Some days, you'll wake up and spot eagles, whales, and seals without even trying. And others, nothing, unless you book a sightseeing tour. Sometimes you can go a whole cruise without seeing any wildlife from the ship. But it's that unpredictability that makes every sighting so special. Let's talk about whale sightings because they're everyone's favorite. Whale sightings are common from May to September, but June and July are peak season. I've even had the opportunity to see them right from the ship. You might spot sprouts in the distance, and if you're lucky, a humpback whale breaching. But if you want the best chance to get up close and personal, book a dedicated whale watching excursion. On one of my tours in Victoria, BC, I saw humpbacks, gray whales, sea lions, and even an orca pod. It's that kind of moment that you'll remember forever. But up in the air, you might spot bald eagles. I thought they'd be rare, but in reality, they're everywhere. You'll see them perched in trees, soaring above the ports, and even flying right past your balcony. And no matter how many times you see them, it's a sight that never gets old. And of course, bears. If you're sailing between July to early September, that's peak salmon rush season. The rivers are packed with fish, which draws the bears to feed. Some excursions take you right into those spots where you can see bears grab salmon straight from the river. Now, I'll be honest, even after multiple cruises during salmon season, I've yet to see a bear. I don't know if it makes me unlucky or lucky depending on how close you want to get. So here's my advice. Bring binoculars, be patient, and always keep your eyes open on deck. You might not see everything you're hoping for, but when you do spot a whale, eagle, or bear, it's pure magic. Now let's talk packing, because Alaska's weather can be all over the place. I'm talking sunshine 1 minute, drizzle the next, and a cold mist right after. It's unpredictable, and that's part of the experience. The key is to think in layers. A base layer, a sweater for the mid layer, and a lightweight waterproof jacket you can throw on when it rains. Southeast Alaska is in the Tongass temperate rainforest, so trust me, you will get rain at some point. A lightweight rain jacket and waterproof shoes are worth their weight in gold. And here's a pro tip, skip the umbrella. With the wind on deck and in port, they're more trouble than they're worth. A good hooded raincoat or poncho does a better job without the hassle. Now when it comes to shoes, bring something comfortable for walking, especially in port. Whether you're doing a short hike, shore excursion, or just exploring the town, you'll want sturdy, waterproof shoes because you'll be doing a lot more walking than you'd expect. Leave the fancy heels and dress shoes at home or in your cabin for formal night. And here's where I admit a rookie mistake. I overpacked. On my first Alaskan cruise, I brought way too many sweaters, and I only ended up wearing the same 2 hoodies almost every day. You don't need a giant wardrobe, just pack smart layers that you can mix and match. So don't overthink it. Pack for rain, dress in layers, and make sure your shoes can handle the wet ground. If you're comfortable, you'll enjoy Alaska no matter what the weather throws at you. Along with the layers and a good rain jacket, there are a few extra things you'll want to bring to make your Alaskan cruise way more enjoyable. First up are binoculars. Yes, you can see glaciers and mountains without them, but binoculars let you catch the details you'd otherwise miss, like spotting a bald eagle in a tree or a bear moving along the shoreline. I can't tell you how many times I've borrowed someone else's binoculars and immediately wish I had my own. You also want to bring a decent camera or a phone with a good zoom lens. Alaska is jaw-droppingly beautiful, and you want a camera that can capture that beauty. A zoom lens makes all the difference for wildlife and landscape shots. Third, pack motion sickness remedies even if you don't usually get seasick. The open waters before you reach the inside passage can get choppy. Bring Dramamine, a patch, or even those sea bands. It's much better to have it and not need it than to spend half your cruise with motion sickness. And finally, consider bringing a sleep mask. In the summer, Alaska days are long. Sometimes the sun doesn't set until after 11 p.m. A sleep mask helps you actually rest so you're ready for those long adventure-packed days ashore. So pack smart because having the right gear can be the difference between a good trip and a great one. Moving on to shore excursions. In Alaska, the real magic happens off the ship, and that means shore excursions. I'll be honest, Alaskan shore excursions are expensive, but there are so many that are absolutely worth the cost. One of my favorites is whale watching. Sure, I've already said I've been lucky enough to see whales from the ship, but being out on a smaller boat with expert guides is a whole different experience. They know exactly where to look, and suddenly you're surrounded by sprouts, tail slaps, and a humpback breaching right in front of you. It's close, it's personal, and the guides offer information about the whales and pods that enhance the experience. There's also dog sledding. This is where you get to meet the real Iditarod athletes, play with the puppies, and watch the dogs in action during a sledding demonstration. The energy of the dogs is incredible. they live to run. It's such a unique Alaskan experience that you just won't find anywhere else. And one of my personal favorites is the White Pass and Yukon Railroad in Skagway. It's a train ride that never gets boring. The historic train winds its way up to 3,000 feet above sea level, through mountains, past waterfalls, and over wooden bridges, alongside the footpath taken by prospective miners more than 100 years ago. The views are unreal, and the history of the Klondike Gold Rush makes the ride even more interesting. It's an easy, relaxing way to see landscapes you'd never reach otherwise. But I'll warn you, if you have a fear of heights, this one might not be for you. It's crazy to look out one side of the train and see the cliff of a mountain, and on the other, it's a 2,000-foot drop. But if you're ready for a little thrill, I highly recommend taking a train ride. Another favorite of mine is Juneau's Mount Roberts Tramway. In just a few minutes, you're whisked from sea level up into the mountains, with sweeping views of the harbor and surrounding peaks. At the top, you'll find hiking trails, a nature center, and if you're lucky, maybe even spot some wildlife. It's simple, affordable, and the views of Juneau and your cruise ship are absolutely breathtaking. If you're into history, gold panning excursions are a fun way to relive the Klondike days. Yes, it's a little touristy, but swirling that pan, feeling the cold water, and finding a few flakes of real gold to take home is surprisingly satisfying. And then you have the helicopter tours. I haven't done one yet, but it's right at the top of my list for my next Alaskan cruise. Flying over massive glaciers or landing right on one is about as epic as it gets. It's pricey, but people who've done it tell me it's worth every dollar. Bottom line is that excursions are where Alaska really comes alive. My advice is to splurge on at least one unforgettable, once-in-a-lifetime experience, whether that's whale watching, dog sledding, or a helicopter flight. And then balance it out with simpler, more affordable options like the tram ride or just exploring the port towns. That mix gives you the best of both worlds. Just make sure you book early because popular excursions sell out fast. But not every highlight in Alaska has to be an expensive excursion. Some of my best memories came from simply trying the local food and drinks in port. In Juneau, you've got to stop at Tracy's Crab Shack. Their king crab legs are massive, buttery, and absolutely worth the splurge. Quick tip, head to their second location a little further down the dock. Their main spot had a 2-hour wait the last time I was there, but their second location only took about 30 minutes. Over in Sitka, there's Ludwig's Chowder Cart. It's nothing fancy, just a little shack by the harbor, but their spicy chorizo clam chowder has become a staple for me every time I'm in town. And then there's Red Dog Saloon back in Juneau. Yes, it's touristy, but it's also historic and a lot of fun. When you're there, make sure you order their signature drink, the duck fart shot. It's 3 layers of Kahlua, Baileys, and whiskey. It sounds strange, but it's one of those quirky Alaskan traditions that you've got to try at least once. And those are just a few favorites. My advice, don't be afraid to skip the ship's buffet now and then. The local food scene in Alaska has its own personality, and tasting is part of the adventure. Now let's talk about a big one on a lot of people's bucket lists, the Northern Lights. And here's the truth. Yes, you can see the Northern Lights on an Alaskan cruise, but it's rare and depends heavily on timing. Your best chance is late September to early October when the nights are long and dark enough to give the aurora more visibility. In peak summer like June or July, the sun barely sets. And even when it does, the sky never gets truly dark. So in those months, your odds of seeing the Northern Lights are pretty much zero. If the aurora borealis is a must for you, plan a cruise at the very end of the season. Or better yet, add a land tour further north into Alaska where your chances are much higher. Even then, there are no guarantees. It all depends on the solar activity, cloud cover, and honestly, a bit of luck. Some people sail multiple times and never catch a glimpse, while others step out on deck at just the right moment and see the sky explode in green and purple waves. I haven't been lucky enough to see them yet, but it's still high on my bucket list for a future Alaska trip. Here's something to keep in mind if you're flying to Alaska from the East Coast. It's a long trip. Depending on how many stops your flight has, you're looking at 8 to 10 hours of travel. And sometimes more. No surprise, but delays are pretty common. That's why I always recommend flying in at least one day before your cruise. If you try to arrive the same day, even a short delay could mean missing the ship. And trust me, the cruise line won't wait. Coming in early not only gives you a buffer, but also lets you start the trip rested instead of stressed. Plus, you also get a bonus day to explore your departure city, whether that's Seattle, Vancouver, or Anchorage before you ever step on board. Here's the bottom line on Alaska cruises. Alaska isn't about the parties or pool decks. It's about the scenery, wildlife, and those once-in-a-lifetime experiences. Pack smart, plan ahead, and splurge on at least one excursion that you'll remember forever. Do that, and I promise your first Alaskan cruise will be the trip of a lifetime.